I think we can all agree that engagement is better than isolation. So I think that question has been adequately dealt with. The question that remains, though, is whether the Olympic Games are the best way to engage countries. I would like to start with one great myth about the Olympic Games, assiduously promoted by the International Olympic Committee, as well as often host governments for the Games, which is that the Games are not political, that sports and politics are somehow separate things and shouldn't mix and aren't mixed and so on. In fact, the Olympic Games were political from the very beginning. When the Baron de Coubertin started, or first had the thought of Olympic Games in the late 19th century, it was sparked by the defeat of France in the war against Prussia in 1871, and he was deeply worried about the decadence of his country. And what he wanted, in his rather curious phrase, was to re-bronze the French by stimulating games, sports, and so on. And what he had in mind, he was an Anglophile, was sort of like British public school education, competitive sports and games and so on. And he thought that this would restore the virility of France. And by extension, by reviving the Olympic Games, which of course started in Athens in ancient Greece, but hadn't been held for centuries, by reviving the Olympic Games, it would help to restore the health of other nations as well. And this, was, of course, was a very 19th century idea. After all, this was the time of world fairs and world expositions and so on. The idea that if nations got together in great jamborees, whether it's sports or otherwise, to show off their wares, nations would form friendships, and people would get along better, and there wouldn't be wars and so on. There was another political view at the time expressed by a political opponent of de Coubertin, who was Charles Maurras, the founder of the Action Française, which is the extreme right-wing, anti-republican, anti-Semitic organization, which later evolved into, if evolve is quite the word, into the Vichy government in World War II. Charles Maurras saw the Olympic Games as a typical example of Anglo-Saxon cosmopolitanism and individualism, and was therefore to be deplored. Now, he actually, as a spectator, was there in Athens at the first modern games, and he began to rethink his position. And as he was watching this, he thought, well, maybe there is something to this, because if the different races, as he would have put it, are thrown together in competition like this, they will learn to hate each other. And this is a good thing in a world of Darwinian struggle and so on and so forth.